Well, happy to announce a new program in Kansas working to address the rural attorney shortage. The lack of local legal expertise in these communities has been more than just an inconvenience for farmers, but also a threat to their operations' viability. Roger McEowen with the Washburn School of Law joins us now for more on this. And Roger, I can tell folks that are watching, you have been talking about this issue for a very, very long time. Why do you think we're seeing this shortage?
Well, good to be with you, Suzanne. And as you recall, you and I did 4 consecutive Mondays back in June of 2024 talking about this issue. I appreciate RFD-TV kind of taking the lead on that. I think there are several issues here, big contributing factors. One of those is the law schools themselves. It's never really been a focus of an emphasis at the law schools. People are familiar with the Newsweek magazine rankings of law schools, and those are often tied to placements with big law firms in urban centers in the country and the emphasis on salaries. And so the law schools have not focused on rural practice. And also, the law schools tend to focus more on specialization. It's kind of the same thing in the medical field. But, as a rural practitioner and dealing with agricultural issues, you've got to be a Swiss Army knife of the law, a little bit of everything. Just yesterday, I had to deal with stolen bottle calves in one situation, a complex tax situation, a corporate restructuring, and then a fence question. That was all yesterday, and just in a variety of questions. And that's what you deal with as a rural practitioner. But that's not been the emphasis of law schools. And then, of course, there's the aging out factor. The attorneys that are there are getting older and they're aging out and retiring, and it's leaving a hole.
Yeah, I feel like you just answered this by saying, listen, sometimes I hear people going, why don't you just get a lawyer in the next city or get, hey, my cousin's brother's friend is a lawyer. He can help you with that. This isn't the answer. We have to have people, like you said, who can pretty much cover everything within an ag community as a lawyer. Maybe you can speak more to some of the main impacted areas that you're really seeing taking a hit because of this shortage.
Well, I got to answer a question as soon as I get off the air with you here, and that has to deal with the various definitions of adjusted gross income for purposes of the farm programs. Very detailed stuff. That's one of the big issues. I'd say another one is estate planning and succession planning, and of course, tax planning for farmers and ranchers. That doesn't get any easier. Congress continues to make the rules pretty complex. That takes a lot of specialized knowledge. And then we think of the aging of the farmers back on that succession planning issue. There's going to be a lot of land and operations that transfer hands in just the next few years. And so they need help dealing with all of those connected problems concerning that. And that's a massive issue that's out there.
Well, let's talk about this new program that's looking to address this shortage and how this works.
Well, we got 2 aspects to it in Kansas. Governor signed it into law a couple of weeks ago, and it takes effect July 1. The first aspect is that there's a $3,000 a year stipend for a student. It's basically an advance on their expenses. They can collect up to $3,000 a year to offset costs of books and so forth. Basically operating expenses of going to law school. And then if they practice in a rural area, they don't have to pay that back. And so each year they practice in a rural area, they keep that $3,000, don't have to pay it back, but it's paid to them in advance to help cover the cost. That's the minor portion of the program. The big portion is the loan forgiveness, up to $20,000 per year for 5 years, so a total of $100,000 of loan forgiveness. They've got to commit to active practice in a rural area for 5 years to avoid repayment. The thinking is once you've been there 5 years, you're going to stick, you're going to stay there. And so that's the major incentive to the legislation that was passed.
Wow, this is incredible. So $3,000 for an advancement if they're going to law school, don't have to pay it back if they stay within a rural community and practice law there. And then the $20,000 for forgiveness. And that's right. Over how many years?
Over 5 years. So a total of $100,000, $20,000 a year. But they've got to stay the full 5 years. They can't just take the $20,000 practice a year and get $20,000 of your loan written off and then go to an urban area. You've got to have a 5-year commitment to avoid paying any of that back.
That is incredible. The next steps for this, you're saying, is this going into effect July 1st?
Yeah, it starts July 1st. And so what has to happen here in Kansas is you have to create a rural attorney fund, and then they have to set up an advisory committee to help manage that fund and figure out a way to work this clawback provision in case a recent graduate goes to praxis in a rural area and doesn't stay 5 years. So they got to figure out the mechanics of all of this. And hopefully they can get that done. I think that's enough time for the Commerce Committee, which this is run through Commerce in the Kansas legislature, to figure out the mechanics of it.
So real quick, we're out of time, Roger, but when they go ahead and practice, does it have to be in the state of Kansas or can it be in any rural community? Has to be in Kansas.
This is Kansas only.
Kansas only. Do you see other states possibly picking this up?
Yes. Yeah. It's gained some interest in other legislatures across the country.
Yeah, what an incredible thing, for sure. A step in the right direction, a big step. Roger, thank you, as always. I know this means a lot to you. Roger McEowen with the Washburn School of Law.